My next guest, the French philosopher Bernard-Henri Lévy, is somehow hoping to stop Brexit with his new one-man play. It's called The Last Exit Before Brexit. And I spoke to him here in the studio before he took to the stage. Bernard-Henri Lévy, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So why have you come to Britain, to Angleterre, as you say, to launch this appeal? Why here?
Why here?
Yeah, why this is the debut?
Because Brexit is supposed to happen here.
That's true.
And after Brexit, Italian exit. And after that, Frexit. Europe begins to dismember itself, to fall into pieces here in London. And the worst is that London is the software of Europe, is the DNA of Europe. Europe was built after English ideas.
Really? Is that how you see it?
I really believe that. I really believe that the cradles of Europe are, of course, Athens, of course, Roma, and the UK. After World War II, it is English ideologues, Karl Popper, Keynes, and others, who really built the pattern after which this space of free exchange, of refusal of totalitarianism, in principle of colonialism, and so on, was built. So England, UK, is quitting a space which she herself designed and conceived.
So you're quite unusual for a Frenchman. I mean, Frenchmen and women are quite chauvinistic about France. I mean, why do you love Britain so much? Why are you such an Anglophile? Why don't you see this as an advantage for you in France to be capitalizing on?
I am, as you say, because one of the first sentences I heard in my life was my mother telling me that if I was alive, if I came in this bloody world, it was thanks to Winston Churchill and the brave pilots of the Royal Air Force. That's why I'm born. That's why I'm here today. So I have an inextinguishable debt toward America and England. And this is what I say tonight in this last exit before Brexit.
So you feel you have a huge debt, and frankly, so many people do. But it's not often that we get distinguished philosophers from across the channel to come and try to persuade the Brits. How do you think you're going to be received?
I think how I will be received, we'll see. Maybe with tomatoes, who knows? But I don't hate confrontation. But I think that the mood will change in this country. I cannot believe that this country goes through to the end in this huge mistake for Europe and mistake for UK. Great Britain will become Little England if Brexit goes to its end. I know that some people voted for Brexit because of austerity, because of unemployment. There will be even more of that. All the economists, which I am not, know that. So my feeling is that something is going on now in the depth of this society, and we will have some surprise. We have still to wait 1 year. Many things can happen in 1 year. I would not be surprised if we had a big surprise before the end of the process.
But don't you think France dodged a bullet? I mean, it would have been Frexit maybe if Marine Le Pen had won, but Emmanuel Macron won with a proudly globalist, European, progressive, liberal agenda.
Exactly. But he won against Marine Le Pen, which was unconceivable a few years later. And we were very close to a duel between Marine Le Pen and Mélenchon, who are honestly twins.
Mélenchon is the communist candidate.
Not communist, the so-called extreme leftist. Extreme left in my time was something else, I can tell you. At least we said, we all are German Jews. It was a real internationalism to be extreme left at that time. Today, to be extreme left in France and in UK is chauvinistic, and so on.
Is it a little like extreme right today?
Not a little like. I do believe that in France they are twins. Marine Le Pen and Mélenchon. And on Europe, they think the same. On media, they think the same. On establishment and the system, this short mind, short idea, they think the same.
You are Jewish. You come from Algerian origin. And immigration is a huge, I mean, the idea of migration, refugees, foreigners has played hugely into Brexit, into what happened with Marine Le Pen, into what happened in America with Donald Trump, and what's happening all over all over Europe right now. How does Europe counter this ugly narrative that we're seeing, you know, rising? It's not just anti-Semitism, it's anti-everything.
How to fight against that? By saying the truth. By saying that the roots of jihadism and of terrorism has nothing to do with that. It has to do with ideas. It has to do with a certain conception of Islam. It has to do with fascism. It has to do with the corpse or the ghost of the old Nazism, which has never been criticized in the Muslim world. It has to do with all of that. Nothing to do with these poor men, children, and women coming by sea to Lampedusa or wherever and stocked in Calais. This is a terrible lie and a shame to make the amalgam between the two.
Were you happy to see this amazing Malian immigrant really make a heroic rescue of a young child in Paris last week, and to see him go to the Élysée and granted his citizenship as an example, as an extraordinary case?
I am always happy when I see a woman or a man showing these sorts of virtues, these sort of highness, and giving this sort of example. We had a gendarme in France called Gendarme Beltrame, who risked his life and lost it in order to save a woman in front of a jihadist. We have this Malian man who risked his life and did not lose it in the same sort of situations. This gives you hope in humanity and in your country. And in the refugees, you have certainly many more men or women like this young Malian than terrorist-linked people.
What do you think, as a child of post-war, of the current president of the United States levying tariffs on his European allies and on his Canadian allies and his Mexican allies? But the Canadians and the Europeans, they say, hang on a second, we fought together. We've been allies for 150 years. How can you be doing this?
This is completely crazy. It is not the least crazy decision which the President of the United States takes since 1 year. It's completely crazy. The West, Europe and America, have so many common enemies. We have to face the blackmail of Erdogan. We have to face the nuclear weapon of Iran. We have to face the imperialism of China. We have to face Putin, whose main target is to destabilize the West. And we are engaging a quarrel between America and Europe. This is a suicide. This is a form of moral suicide. And it's completely absurd and intellectually criminal.
Well, I want to play you a soundbite from your president, Emmanuel Macron, who I know you supported. I spoke to him in September in New York. And at that time, he was hopeful that he could talk to President Trump and persuade him about the Iran nuclear deal, about climate, about all the things that you've just mentioned and the mutual challenges. This is what he said.
I have very direct discussions with President Trump. I do appreciate him. We have a very good personal relationship, and I have very direct discussion with him. We share our views. He's very direct, and I think he listened to what I propose.
Well, I don't think he's listened to what President Macron proposes. President Macron is now very well known in the United States. And obviously, Europe wished that he would use his good relationship with President Trump to get him to listen. But on climate, he hasn't listened. On the moving the embassy to Jerusalem, he hasn't listened. On the Iran nuclear deal, and now with tariffs. What is Europe's defense, I guess, is the question.
What I think is that, thanks God, America is so much taller, so much higher, with such a bigger memory and so much a brighter future than President Trump. President Trump will have his time, and America will last. And I suppose that President Macron talked to America. And when he spoke at the Congress, by the way, he spoke to America itself, and look at the multiple standing ovations he had. So you have a president, a European president, who is strengthening the link of life, the link of blood, the link of life, the link of hope between the two continents. And you have an American president, provisional American president, like in democracy, it takes four years, who is trying to
or
break...
8.
Maybe 8, okay. I would bet 4, who is trying to break the link. But this...
And the norms, the global norms.
The global norms, yes. But the link, America was built really as a sort of re-beginning of Europe. This is the spirit of America. The spirit of America is, since the founding fathers, to John Fitzgerald Kennedy at least, is based on the idea that the values which made Europe are going and are replanted in another earth in order to bloom in a more beautiful and more brilliant way. This is the strongest and the most beautiful America. Okay, Mr. Trump thinks other way. America will last longer than Mr. Trump.
Bernard-Henri Lévy, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Christiane.